That sucks. Good afternoon, everybody. Sean Carlson, Blackjack 98 Enterprises. Today's date is Sunday, May the 11th at approximately 4:30 in the afternoon as I start this. By the time I finish this, it will be a different time, a different date. So, the project that you see behind me is my next one. Technically, this is my third one that I have done, but the second video, I lost it somewhere in the making or the production, or it didn't get whatever uploaded. So this is a repeat, but this is a totally different machine. It's the exact same model. So here we go, I'm going to turn it around. This is a Poulan Prolink 31 cubic centimeter gas string trimmer. Some of you might have one that looks just like this, which is why you're watching this video. Customer, or the person that I bought this from, gave it to me or sold it to me for $10 for two of them. As you can see, it's missing the air filter and the air filter cover, which is supposed to be on the end of this. That is not a big deal because thanks to the powers of technology, we can order more. Spark plug is underneath, which is right there. Now, he did run this for me, so we know that the primer bulb works, we know that the choke works, we know that the fuel that goes into the carburetor works. Technically, this thing does run. It might not run efficiently enough because he did say that it had problems when you hit the trigger. This part here is a head which is detachable, which you just unscrew this and the head comes out. I have the head, but that head belongs to somebody else who has the exact same one, and the only reason why this is not on here is because the one that was on here was a bump head. I sold one to a customer and it was a fixed head, so this is the old one that I have, but the customer that I sold one to just like this has a fixed head. So when I get a hold of him, I'm going to give him this one, which is the bump head, and I'm going to get the fixed head back. But for now, what we are going to do is we're going to rebuild this. Okay, so the tools that you will need are a 4mm Allen key. And you will need some star bits, and I'm thinking that it might be a T27. T27, I got these off of Amazon.ca. You cannot find a T27 anywhere in a hardware store. This is T27, this T25. Anyways, what we're going to start off with is we're going to take this off. And the way that we do that is using the Allen key, we take off the 4 bolts. There's one there, one there, one there, and one there. Okay? And once we get that off, then this can be detached from the engine. Okay, so after you get those 4 screws out with this Allen key, with this 4mm Allen key, now you can pull this apart. But you got to be careful. You can't really do this with one hand. You know what? Let me get a stand. Okay, I figured as much. So what we gotta do is we gotta take the handle apart because there's a throttle in there that's connected to the handle to the carburetor. We could take the carburetor off, but no. So what we need here is our 4mm to take off all those screws. Again, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, let me show you something in particular. This one here is the one that attaches to the handle. There's a pinhole in the handle that holds this into place. So if you take this off, you can twist that handle part there, the shaft part. Okay, so let me get this here and make sure you differentiate which goes where. Okay, because these screws are different. Okay, so these 4, put them someplace else. Now I can sort of slide this off, but I can't because, like I said, I gotta take all these off. So you know what? Let me put this on pause and take those out. Okay, so those 4 came off of the handle. This one came off of exactly where it is that I just told you, which is holding this into place, and you're going to see the pinhole once I get this apart. There we go. This comes out just like that. Okay, good. Now everything is sitting nicely. So let's take this part out here and let's look at it. See that hole there that I was talking about? That's where that small screw fits into, okay? And that's what holds it into place to prevent it from going in this motion onto that handle. So let's put this down. Let's put this right there. Okay, now this part here is where all the electrical happens. So take a picture of this. Take a picture of this so that you know how to put it back together. Okay, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to put this, take a picture, then take it apart, and then remove this part here. That there is the throttle screw, which connects to right there. This is the carburetor part, so that is separate from the electrical. The electrical is just a simple on-off switch, which goes over to there. Okay, and there's little channels for everything to run into. So let me disconnect all that. Okay, so once you got the handle disconnected, what you can do is you can put the screws exactly right back where they came from. Okay, and we will talk about the difference between screws and bolts when you're dealing with small engines and where they attach to and how. But right now I'm going to take these two, I'm going to put them right in the bucket. Any spare screws and stuff, you can put them into a little container like this. Okay, now we're looking at the engine. Let's stand this up nicely, just like this. And what we have here is a clutch, this here being the clutch. So there's an internal part which is underneath this, which expands when it turns. When it turns, it's like the clutch on a vehicle, or the shoes, they spin freely, and at a certain revolutions a minute, they expand and grab this, which makes the turning motion, which is what the head turns. Now, this part here can come off. Inside here, there is a bolt which holds this to the engine. You need to take this off to get this off. Okay, so I'm going to take this and then I'm going to find the head which fits this. Okay, so what I found is a bit that will go into there, and this one just happens to be a T20 bit. Okay, a T20 will fit into here. Now, when you turn this, you stick it in there, you got to feel and make sure it's the right fit. When you turn this, you're also turning the flywheel. You see that? It's not going to work well for you. So you need to hold the flywheel somehow. The way that you do that is there's a little hole right here that you can stick something in. What it will do is it will interfere with the pins of the flywheel, the fins, the cooling fins, but you do not want to turn this or torque this so hard that you actually break a fin. So you're going to feel some resistance. Just apply small pressure, okay? And just like that. Oh, it's got a catch. Just like that, it's got a catch. And then you apply pressure, and then it should snap loose. And what I'm able to do is I'm able to loosen this off. I'm actually loosening it. You might not be able to see it, but I am. The bolt will never come out. It is a part of this unit. See? Just like that. It comes out. Okay? Everybody see that? Now look into there. If you can look into there, you can sort of see that screw. You probably can't at this angle, but whatever. Now this can come out. Now we got our shoe. This is the shoe that I was talking about, which expands into this part here. See? You're going to see some wear on the inside there where it touches. Okay? So, when this spins, these two pieces go against the spring and they expand out. And that spring sucks them back in. Alright? So this can come out now. And we got to do the exact same thing again. We got to stick something in there, and we got to take that out. This one is not going to cooperate with us, so what we have to do is we have to use a lot of pressure. And you might be able to use some type of tool like a grinder wheel remover to take that out. So you have grinder wheel key remover. I don't know exactly if this is going to work, but it's worth a try. If you can get it to work, that's great. Okay, this is going to take too long for me to show you. I'm just going to put this on pause. Okay, so now once you got this loose, be mindful of the orientation as to how it's supposed to go in. The writing faces out. Okay, this should be all nice and flat. There's a washer right here. Be mindful of that washer. Take pictures of it if you want to. Put everything into the container if you want to. But now, there's also a spacer. Be mindful of this spacer. You might not realize that this comes out, it'll just fall out. Okay, now, we have screws that are in here. There's one here, one here, one here, one here. Okay, here's the wiring. Be mindful of the wiring. Alright? Now, we're going to take those out. And those screws are holding this in onto the engine. Okay? They are the same as the T20s that I just took out, I believe. Let me look into there. See, yes, oh, they're the same 4 millimeters. So technically you're going to need a longer one than this, because this will fit into there, but you're going to have problems getting it out with this long. So let's see here. If it is a 4, I think it's a 4. Darn it. Okay, what I'm going to use is a star bit. Sometimes Okay, let me figure this out. Okay, so I got them out. I want to tell everybody something right now. Now, when we go into our stuff here, we just took apart. This screw is what we just took out to get that part there off of here, right? And it was on screws. It was screwed right into there. You watched me take it out. Now, I want everybody to look very carefully, because these here are fine threads. Fine threads are always attached to the engine. These ones here are fine threads. You will always find a fine thread screw bolt holding plastic housing to the engine. When it comes to this here part, you will only find plastic parts being held together by a coarse head screw. Okay? Be very mindful of that. If you're finding something that's not going in right, it is exactly because of that. Okay? So these here can either be put back onto the engine or they can be put into there. But take a picture of them. Be very careful of that. Okay, so I just took those out. Now I'm going to take this apart. And let's see here. There is, of course, there is a spark plug underneath here. Is there anything else? No. There's rubber boots here, which is attached to the spark plug. Can't come out, can come off. Looks like that. And then, oh, look at that. There's 2 screws there right in behind, which can come out. Let's take those out. T20, oh, those bolts came off with the T25. I forgot about this. If you're ever wondering why certain things are not coming apart, it could be because there's extra bolts and stuff. Bolts or screws. What I am taking apart right here is 2 screws. They are 2 plastic parts being fastened together, therefore they are screws. Okay, so let's look at them. See those? They are very different. They are very different in size, shape, and thread pitch. Therefore, be mindful that they go right there, okay? Now we can take that apart. Careful of the wiring. The wiring is a pain in the butt. There we go. That is out. Just like that. Just like that. Okay, now let's look at it. Right, so there we go. This part is now off. This is the rewind part. We will look at the rewind part more in detail. But as you can see with the sunlight, there is 1, 2 screws on the bottom which take that metal plate out. After you get that metal plate out, then the rewind can come out. You might need to disconnect the handle. But everything else here looks like it's in good shape. It just needs to be cleaned up. So we're going to put that aside. Now we're going to look at the engine. We're going to put our tools to a side. Okay, let's look. Now, flywheel, magneto, the boot, spark plug is right there. Okay, the guy fired this up for me, which means the magneto works, which means the spark plug works. He did have this running and it was throttling, so after doing that, if it starts up for you and it kind of chokes like then you know that there is a magneto, that this does work. Now, I do have tools to test the spark plug, and we will use those tools to test the spark plug. But if you want to test the spark plug, to look for spark, you can also put a drill on the end of this with a piece or whatever to spin this. It will spin the magnet around, put power to the magneto, and will cause a spark. You can use a drill to test for spark. So let's look at this way. Our throttle cable is hooked up directly right to the carburetor. If you want to access the carburetor, take these 2 screws out right here. And what else? Is there any other screws that is holding that apart? No. Once you get those 2 off, then you have access to the carburetor. And there's other screws on the inside which take this part off the engine, and you can have access to the muffler. So let's do that. Let's put that aside right there. T25. I use a torque spit to take these out because I'm cool and awesome and I do things in other words. But you're supposed to use a 4mm Allen key. A 4mm Allen key is what it's supposed to be there, and you can use that, whatever. But I'm going to take these 2 out. Hold on. Okay, so once you get this out, be mindful that it's long. It's long. You see that? And not only that, but it's the screw threads, coarse threads. So what that tells me is those 2 that I just took out are not only holding this part to the engine, it's also holding the carburetor part too. And if I take it out carefully, I can see that this stupid primer bulb is giving me grief here. Gosh, but yeah, if you look at that, you can see the carburetor. Darn it. And it's one of those where it's a separate primer bulb type deals. You got 3 lines, 3 fuel lines, and a separate primer bulb. So take a look at that. 3 fuel lines and a separate primer bulb. Now I got to disconnect all those lines just so I can show you how to take this all apart. But in order to have access to the carburetor, you can take this part off. Okay, now I got to empty whatever fuel is in here into a container to make sure that it's emptied, and then I got to take one of my cloths, stuff it in there to absorb the moisture, and absorb any other excess fuel. Okay, and I'm also going to put a big huge cloth underneath this to soak up any spills that I might have. Okay, so we got this apart, and let's count the fuel lines. We have 1, 2, 3. We have 3 fuel lines and a separate primer bulb. I already made a video on how exactly to hook all these up onto a carburetor and the primer bulb, and I will definitely explain it in this video too, to find out where do you hook these up to. But this is the carburetor for this. This is an original carburetor because there is the brand name Zama, China. Okay, it's a C1U, and the other numbers are normally on this side right here, W32A 522A. Just by looking up those numbers, you can find the repair kit for this, and I have lots. So we'll look at this carburetor just a little bit more detail. Let's look at this part here. This is where the air filter cover is supposed to come in. Air comes in through this side through a filter. This part here is what the screw was attached to. Remember, I just took this out? It was attached to right there. Okay, and what do you know? It's a plastic part. 2 plastic parts being held together by a screw. In this case, a long screw, a coarse head screw. Okay, because there's no metal involved, it is not a fine thread. So these 4 bolts, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, can come out with a 4mm. These 2 top bolts hold on the gas tank. If you take these out, you can just remove this, put it nicely over there. Then these 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, will take off the plastic housing from the engine. What does this one do? This one here only holds in the throttle cable. So you can take that out. And you can even put that back in after you're done. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 4mm hex key and remove the gas tank. Okay, so the gas tank is off. It's right there. You see that little indent right there? There is something that goes into this little space. And that is this part right here. This part is what acts as a buffer between the metal, the engine, and the plastic part. And it absorbs all the vibrations and stuff so it doesn't create a crack in the gas tank. What we can do is we can test this for leakage and whatever by putting water in it, by plugging up those holes and whatever. But I went and put in some paper towel to absorb the moisture that's in there. Any leakage that could be. Now, those 4, which came out of those holes right there, let's look at them. Okay, these are fine thread bolts. Okay, now, they are attached to the engine, which is why they are fine threads. Okay, they will be stuck. And when you look at them, you can tell that there was gunk on them, like a Loctite sealant, which prevented them from coming loose during normal operation. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take these and put them in our container. And then we can take this off. So there's no other screws holding this on. This comes off just like that. See that? There we go. That can come off. That's just a valve for the air. Everything looks nice. You see that green part there? That is supposed to create a nice airtight seal between the carburetor and this plastic housing, so that way there's no leaks, air leaks that get into the carburetor, which can affect fuel consumption. Okay, and now we have full access to the crank cylinder. So let's look at this a little bit more clearly. We can take off the muffler by 2 bolts that are in there, but they are rusted in there very heavily. Okay, so you will need a major force to crank them off. You can take this off, which is just access to the screen, the exhaust screen, which could be full of carbon. Once you get that off, then we can take off the magneto, and then we can take off the spark plug. What I would like to do is I would like to look inside the cylinder and look at the piston for the condition of the piston. And what we are going to do, which I think we could do, we could take off the cylinder head. This part here being the cylinder head, right? Okay, so let's get the muffler off. Okay, so the way that this is going to come off is with a T30 Torx bit, because that's exactly what is in the back here, which I can see. It's a star bit, Torx bit. It's T30 because we're going to be using massive cranking. I used a ratchet. Okay. Snap. That's exactly what you want to hear, and that'll tell you that it's never been off before. You do it again. Snap. Okay, now let's look at this. So, the bolts came off, right there, right there. Okay, so, be mindful of these. Do you see them? They're bolts. Metal, metal, fine threads. Okay, everybody understand that? You can tell these apart with every single one of them because they're bigger on the end and they're rusted all to hell, which is quite normal for a muffler. So let's put them in our container. This part now can be set aside and washed. Now what I do is I use Easy Off oven cleaner. I just spray the hell on the inside of this. I shake it around and I rinse it out with hot water. That's how I do it. That's how I clean mufflers, because Easy Off oven cleaner is meant to clean carbonation on your oven. This part here can normally get worn or burnt out, so this is aluminum. This is a protective heat absorbing material. Make sure that there is no no cracks or anything in this entire structure, because it could interfere with the heat being expelled. Okay, and that's that. Now we can sort of look at the piston, I think. So this is the exhaust side, and I'm going to try to spin it by turning the flywheel. Yes, there we go. So we can see the piston now, the sidewalls, and there's the piston rings. Only on the muffler side will you ever be able to see the top of the piston. On the carburetor side, you will only be able to see the bottom and the walls. So from this angle, we can see that the rings are good, the inside walls of the cylinder are good. And if we keep spinning it and taking a look at the walls of the piston, they are nice. So there is no problem with compression on this at all. In fact, we could have done a compression test even before we took this apart. But now that we've got this far, we're going to continue going all the way. How do you take the cylinder head off of this? Okay, so let's look at it for this angle. There's access points from here, and there's an access point to here. And the bolt to take that off is right there. So you put a long bit and you put it into there, right? You see that? And then you crank it out. So let's look at that. Let me see what that is. That is a Allen key bit, which we need an Allen key for. And if you see a black thing here, there's a gasket. There will always be a gasket between two metal flat surfaces, which will prevent air escape. It'll create a nice tight vacuum seal between two parts. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get an Allen key to remove that later, but right now what we're going to do is we're going to take off the magneto. And there's two star bits, which is this one and this one. And let me find out which one that it is. If you're wondering where the hell I got these from, this one here, I got these from Amazon.ca. So this one is a T25. A T25 will remove this magneto. So let me get that off real quick. Okay, these are the two bolts that we're holding in the magneto, and you can tell that there's stuff on the threads. Those stuff is probably some type of Loctite which holds the magneto into place. And it's important that the magneto stays into place because that part there and that part there are the only things that are touching that are close to the magneto that are separated by a gap. That gap is like fractions of an inch, and these two right here are the magnets. There's north and south magnets on there, and those magnets produce the power which create the electricity for the end of the spark plug right there. Okay, so a magneto will normally look like this with wiring on it. Okay, sometimes there is a wire, sometimes there is not. It totally depends on the manufacturer. So we're going to make a note of that. So we're going to put these into our container. Now, this flywheel can come off. There's a washer right here. Be careful of that washer. You might not even realize that there was a washer there, but there is a washer there. Let's put that washer, plunk. Now, we can take off this flywheel, and the way that we do that is we go tip tap. We go tap tap tap, tap tap tap, tap tap, tap 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 tap, and it should come loose. You might need to even use a screwdriver to pry it just a little bit to get that off, but I can't do everything with one hand. Hold on. There we go. Okay, now let's look at this. Okay, so this is what it looks like when the flywheel is off. I want to tell you guys a marketing scam that you might not be aware of. The marketing scam is the fact that the keyway that is supposed to go into there is actually built right into the flywheel. You see in the flywheel there, that little key? That little key is built right into there, so that way if you ever shear that, you now have to replace this entire thing. These entire things probably are like $50 or $60. So it's a $50 or $60 part. But, you know what? Let me tell you guys something. I am able to take a micro file set and file that down and install a separate keyway onto that. And then put it back onto that part there, and it will work fine. Okay, so you can do that if you had a micro file set to file that down and put a separate keyway into. Now these fins here help balance out the entire thing, so if you break one, you're screwed. Then you literally have to go and buy a new one, because there is an odd number of these in particular, and they have different weights to them. So therefore, you cannot counter this part here if you break it by removing one of these parts, because you just screw it up and it'll vibrate all the hell and everything will come loose and it'll not operate properly. So this is now done. This engine is now totally complete except for the cylinder head, which we can now take off. I'm going to get my Allen key ready, but yep, I'm going to take that spark plug out too. So let me get everything ready. Okay, so in order to take that, you need an Allen key, and it is a 3/16. A 3/16 Allen key to take that off. Got my stuff right there. Let me set this up. You're going to watch me fight with this because those things are on there like a son of a bitch. Okay? So you got to really use a lot of pressure to get them off. And I'm going to use... I'm actually going to use a lot of things at my disposal as well. You're just going to watch me take it off. So here we go. Okay. loose, it's good. I like to hear that. There is Loctite on the threads. Okay, now you're going to watch me do it to the other side. Same thing. There we go. Yes. Loose, nicely loose. Okay, now that you got that off, okay, those bolts are loose. They're not exactly coming out. This part here is technically somewhat sealed and glued to this part here. So even though there's a gasket, they are kind of glued together. So you're just gonna take a little tap and separate them. Turn it around. Now remember, there's a piston inside. So we're gonna take it out nice and slowly, okay? There we go. Everybody see that? Good. I'm just going to put it down. Get my tools out of the way. I'm going to put it down. Okay, let's look at this part here first. This was the part that it was, as you can see, it's nice and clean. There was a little bit of gunk on this here, the sealant. As you can tell, it's kind of indented. There's a raised area here which presses into the gasket to create that nice air seal. But if you look inside, there's a whole bunch of crud near the spark plug. So we take Easy Off Oven Cleaner, we put it into there, and then we can scrub that out. The cylinder walls look just fine. Okay? And when you look at this entire thing, it's nice. There's no cracks anywhere. Okay? So, therefore, we can take this and put it aside right there. Now let's look at the piston. Ooh, the piston. There's the gasket, which you can tell that was indented in by the previous part, and it's ripped. So, therefore, we now have to make another part, and we can do that with the material that I have readily at hand. Now this piston can come out just by removing it, like this, slowly. Woohoo! There we go. Those pins, those needle pins will fall out, so make sure there's nothing in there, but the piston in particular, the walls of it look nicely. You can tell there's a lot of oil that's on here. What I will do is I will soak this also in Easy Off Oven Cleaner. And there's numbers on top here which you can't see very well because of the carbonation. But once I get Easy Off Oven Cleaner on there, I will take that off. And the ring, as you can tell on that part there, is supposed to be in this position. It cannot be in any other position like this because of that pin that is in there. That pin serves the purpose of keeping the rings in place. And you can take the connecting rod out by taking out this part right here, which is not something that I really want to do right now. Not because I don't want to, but because I don't need to. So now let's look at this part. This here's the crank. Okay. There is a needle something set which will take that out, the snap ring pliers. And once you get that out, then you can just slightly tap this and out from this side. It will tap out, and then you can take out the freaking crank. This part here well, I'll have to replace it. I got the material to replace it, which is this stuff right here, which is what I used to fix all the other kits. Other material that I use, I will not use this one in particular, but I do have the material like this that's in my it's in my inventory that I have here. Let's see here. Is it in here? Frig. Is it in here? Yes. Yes, I got a whole bunch of stuff like that. See? This stuff here, where they have waterproof and stuff sheets, I can just carve another piece out by taking this out carefully and tracing it, and with an X-Acto knife set I can create this gasket. Okay, so let's look at it. There's no other rust or anything in here, which means there has been no water in here at all. Okay, and there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. This weed whacker has been stripped apart right down to the piston. This is what Blackjack 98 Enterprises is all about. Stripping it right down to the piston and then putting it all back together. This is what I do. This is how I do it. Now, the way that I do it, you can do it too. Okay? All you have to do is just watch this video, how I did it, what tools I used to do it. And then you can do the exact same thing. Alright, so what I'm going to do is that I'm going to wash every single part here with soap, water, CLR, Easy Off Oven Cleaner, and then we're going to slowly put it back together, and then we're going to test the parts as they go back together, like the spark plug there. Okay, so that's that for now. Sean Carlson, Blackjack 98 Enterprises. What you are seeing here is what I am all about. Complete engine teardown and rebuilds by removing the carburetor, the fuel tank, stripping everything down right to the piston. That's what Blackjack 98 Enterprises is. That's how I do my work, and when you watch my videos, you can do it too. That's it. Sean Carlson, Blackjack 98 Enterprises. Do you have a fuel tank with 2 holes and you don't know which one goes where? It would be helpful for you to know that one of those holes is bigger than the other. One is 4.5, the other is 4. And you can use a metric drill bit set to figure that out. The larger hole connects to the fuel filter, which connects to your carburetor. The smaller drill bit connects to the return on your carburetor. Now, if you have a separate primer bulb, then the short shaft connects to the fuel filter, the long shaft connects to the return. Okay, there's a video on how I explain that. Sean Carlson, Blackjack 98 Enterprises. A lot of people criticize me for using CLR and oven cleaner to clean all my engine parts, but as you can see, everything is nice and sparkly. How about that? Right, when it comes to putting in the fuel lines on your primer bulb and your carburetor, and then putting it into here and connecting it to your gas tank, this is how it is supposed to go. So you need to really listen, look carefully. On the primer bulb, there's a short side and a long side. The short one brings the fuel in. So you're sucking that in when you release the primer bulb, and it hooks up directly to this one. So you can have a little short line from there to there. This one here connects to the fuel tank. So does this one. This one, the long one on the primer bulb, is the return. So this goes directly to the fuel tank but does not hook up to the fuel filter. Now let's look at the fuel. So this is it. Okay, you see that? One side is hooked up to the fuel filter. That fuel filter is the darker colored one. So that darker colored hose will connect to right there. That lighter colored hose is the return, and it's just putting gas back into the gas tank. So that lighter colored one will hook up to this one. No, this one. Okay, so this one is the return. Oh my gosh, I think I got it mixed up. Small one to here, this one to the return, hooks up to the return, and then this one hooks up to the fuel filter. Okay, so 1 line, 2 lines, 3 lines. If I was to draw it out for you in a picture, you'd understand what it looks like. But you know what? I'm going to do that right now. This is the field diagram whenever you have a carburetor with a separate primer bulb attached to it. So this is the fuel flow. The arrows point to fuel flow. The 90-degree angle right there is referring to this one. The 30-degree angle right there is referring to that one. This is referring to the fuel tank, which is right there. And the primer bulb, of course, which is attached right to the side. This is all for your Poulan Prolink. Okay, so by following this diagram, you could hook all these lines together. And that is how I will do it when I put everything back together. Sean Carlson, Blackjack 98 Enterprises. This is a diagram of the fuel flow and the hookup for 3 fuel lines and a separate primer bulb. Okay, so now it comes to where we're going to analyze and take apart the bump head for the weed whacker. So, because of the fact that it departs, there's a part in there that we can just sort of take out. You can't really take it out. The way that you take this off is you just hit the 2 tabs right there, and it just removes just like that. Okay, and it comes out. The spool comes out. It's supposed to be very simple. Okay, and the line in there looks very cheap. We'll take the line out. We'll clean this up. This part here can come off. We can take that off, or we don't need to take that off really. But if we want to grease the head of the gears in there, that's what this screw is. You take that screw out and you can stick your grease gun into there to grease the gears. Okay, so to get this off of this, you just use a hex bit and the tube will come right off. This part here is supposed to go into the tubing to prevent this from twisting like that, but that's missing. I just found that out. And so I'm thinking that this bump head works pretty well. It's supposed to do what it is supposed to do. So what I'm going to do is just clean it up and put a different type of line onto this spool. And then we're going to grease it up with that there, and then we'll put it back onto the weed whacker, and then we'll fire it up after we mix gas. Okay, so we're going to mix gas for this now, and on the cap it specifically says 40-1. The type of gas that I use is 91 premium, 91 regular, 91 supreme, 91 period. The type of oil that I use is this type. There is manufacturer supplied oil that you can use on your weed whacker, which they do recommend. This is the type of oil that I use because it's a high quality type of oil specifically meant for small engines. And these are the other tools that you'll need. Of course, you'll need a drink, and a measuring cup, and I use this to suck the oil out of there to put it into here and mix it with the gas. When I look at the gas tank, I'm going to estimate that it's probably going to be 8 ounces. I'm going to put 8 ounces. I'm going to mix 40-1, 8 ounces, and put it into there. All right, everybody. We got the gas in the gas tank. Let's press the primer bulb. As you can see from pressing it, it's full. And it keeps on filling up. So that means the fuel lines that we have hooked up are correct. Therefore, it should be no problem to start this up. So when you do, turn the switch on. This is start right there, which is the same thing as choke. You give it a few pulls, pull, 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 it'll start go blah. When it does, you can hit the trigger. When you do, it'll go into run automatically, just like that, okay? So when you hit the trigger like that, it's going in the run, and then it'll be in full power, like 100%. But because of the fact that I just did a rebuild on this, I will have to adjust the carburetor on here, which I will have to access on this side here, those jets. I can access those jets. So I'll have to take this to a location to do the settings. When you do your carburetor adjustments, you need the correct fuel mixture, not to mention the full extent of the line. If this is a 16-inch machine, or 17-inch, or 15-inch, or whatever your machine is, the line on the end there needs to be that 15 inches to properly tune your carburetor to the correct setting according to the line. It is very crucial that you do that. So you're going to see me mess around with this for a bit now.